Atma Namaste and welcome. Today we finish up on our series on potential problems encountered during spiritual practice and their solutions. So let us invoke for divine blessing. Put your hands on your heart, raise it high up. To the Divine Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, we humbly invoke for your great blessings, your divine light, divine love, divine guidance, help, healing, and divine protection. We thank you for the inner strength to continue our spiritual practice. Thank you for illumination and enlightenment and divine oneness. We thank you for prosperity and abundance. We thank you for your mercy and your compassion. Lord God, we thank you. With gratitude, take a deep breath. To the Ajna with great respect. To the heart with love. Raise it back up. Slightly lower. To Master Twakok Sui, to Mahaguruji Mailing, all the great ones, holy gurus, holy masters, saints, archangels, holy angels, and spiritual helpers, to our soul, to our divine self, we thank you for all your great, great blessings. With gratitude, with respect, with love, we thank you. All right. So, we have covered so far, just as a review, we've covered Kundalini physical syndrome, right? Why the body's tired, how come, your body heats up, rashes, maybe some physical ailments. And we talk about the solutions, which are what? Watching your diet, doing more localized and general and localized sweeping, take salt water bath, and so on and so on. All right, we covered that. Then we did Kundalini, emotional and mental syndrome. Irritability, relationship issues, what is the solution, like pranic psychotherapy, stopping your practice, doing self-cleansing, and so on and so on. Then last time we covered Kundalini sex syndrome, which has to do with how the sex drive becomes very, very strong during spiritual practice. Spiritual practice, how to control it, how to regulate, how to harness it for, creativity, intimacy, how to harness it for spiritual development, right? We did the transmutation. You remember that? And we went to accelerated learning and development, or karmic syndrome. Why some people, when they do spiritual practice, their luck has a tendency to, be bad, have problems, so on and so on. What is the solution? Which is basically what? Tithing, service, understanding what the cause of the karma is and how not to repeat it again, how to do corrective measures, and so on and so on. All right? So that is accelerated learning and development. So today, the last one that Master Choa talks about in the Arhatic Yoga class is ESP and mystical syndrome. All right, let's go through it. And it says here, symptoms: hearing, sight, smell, etc. Too much mystical experience, lack of practicality. Symptoms. So what happens is this. As you do your spiritual practice, as you do your Arhatic practice, all your chakras become more activated. More spiritual energy comes down, Kundalini is awakened. So what exactly does that mean? If you remember, in pranic psychotherapy, you have the chakra. Behind the chakra is the chakra web. So this chakra web is actually what allows you to see energy, as it opens and closes, right? Allows you to hear energy as it opens and closes. Your nose and other chakras that allows you to sense energy through your smell. Okay, so as you do your spiritual practice, this chakra web has a tendency to get thinner, thinner, as in, instead of, let's say, the book, this is one of Master Choa Sutra's book, instead of being so thick, it becomes thinner. So when it's thicker, when it used to be thick, when it's thinner, you notice it moves more. It's more sensitive. So a lot of times when your vibration or your frequency, if you will, as you do your practice, rises up, your chakra web becomes more, it's a little thinner and becomes more sensitive to stimulus. So it manifests as sensitivity, either to what you see, what you hear, what you smell, and how you feel. So ESP syndrome or mystical syndrome has a tendency for you to kind of think that things have a tendency to be more than what they really are. For example, let's start with sight. So when a person's in front of you, if your clairvoyant vision has not yet been stimulated, you just look at the person as the physical body. So when they say something, all right, then when your clairvoyant faculty is a little more open, right? Your web on the forehead chakra, solar plexus, whatever, is a little more stimulated. There's a tendency to, just because now and then you see a flash of light around them, what they're saying to me is true. Well, the light has always been there, right? They've always had the aura, but in your case, it just so happened that since you're kind of a little more sensitive, what happens is now and then you see a little flash of light around their head, and you see, that means that's the absolute truth. No, it's just basically your web went like that. You get my point? Or same thing. Let's say the web on your heart and your solar plexus, the chakras that are in charge of sensation, feeling. You're talking to someone, and you notice that, hey, this person is really rude to me. And you think about it, and you start being angry, upset. Well, if you think about it, that person has been the same way for the last 20, 30 years they've known them. Nothing has changed. Their tone of voice is the same. The way they say things is the same. What changes you? So when you do your spiritual practice, sometimes you have the tendency to be oversensitive to other people. You get my point? So sometimes it causes fights, causes misunderstandings, because you are perceiving something on a much heightened level. So they don't really mean anything bad, but you sense that it is. That's the ESP syndrome. Of course, there's a flip side to it, which is what? You get to sense something deeper, but the thing is this, it takes training. Your web opening, vibrating, all of this take training to be accurate. But so when you're new, you suddenly become so sensitive to everything. You cannot focus, you cannot think. When you're in a room, people are talking, you can't think because you think it's too noisy. The noise has always been the same, but it's sensitivity. Clear? That's the meaning of hearing, sight, smell, etc. Then too much mystical experience. Okay. This happens a lot to students who are not prepared. It's just like suddenly, when they meditate, what they see in the inner world, they start to sense or see in their physical world. In other words, they start putting a spiritual or mystical reason to everything that's happened. I remember many years ago, there's this student, he went like this. He said, today's going to be a bad day. I said, well, how did you come up with that conclusion? He said, well, because the dog did not bring the newspaper in today. I'm going, so what's it got to do with anything? Well, the dog has been bringing it for the last 10 years, and today the dog did not bring it. Well, maybe the dog is dead. I don't know. Or the dog decided to go party with another dog. Who knows? But to actually just make a comment that something is just because of something they sense that is not really there, that's an ESP or mystical syndrome. In their mind, they're translating physical events into some mystical experience. You get my point? So they lose practicality. This also happens sometimes when people read books, they do not filter the things that they study or they read. So, sometimes people say, by the way, do you know that when unidentified flying object, UFO, lands on your crown, you're suddenly enlightened? So, who believes that nonsense? But you see, if people their mental faculty is not very, very sharp, they have a tendency to not practice discernment. Or one that message he always said is this. There's this student that claims that after taking a workshop, they will ascend, ascend. They suddenly, the body will disappear and they'll be become pure light. And they actually set a date. On this date, they're going to ascend to whatever. The message just said, well, it's been a few years, I still see her around. You get the idea? So people sometimes have a tendency to lose practicality. You see, spirituality and practicality can exist simultaneously. The key word is to understand. The bridge is understanding. You say, okay, what is happening in my meditations? Those are visions that happen in the inner world. This is the physical world. The inner world have its own properties, laws, and ways they do things, and so that's the physical world. So the struggle of the disciple or the spiritual practitioner is to keep things in their place. In other words, when I meditate, I see light. That is the brilliant light coming down. I see it with my inner eye. Physically, this is a physical table. These are lights. That's physical light. The ability to differentiate the different worlds and be able to work with them together, that is the key. Clear? Now, what else? So what is the solution to all these? Well, first of all, the problem is too much energy. Sometimes your body is so overwhelmed that instead of being practical, you space out. In other words, you have so much energy on the upper chakras, you did not release the excess energy, they're all up here. So when you talk to people, it's just like you're high, like, hi, how you doing? How's life? All good. Like no practicality. So what happens is students, when they don't ground or they root down into the earth, what happens? Their finances suffer. What else? What else suffers? The relationships, because people cannot relate. So this is something very, very serious. It's good to be spiritual, loving, but it is also important to be practical, because you have bills to pay, you have responsibilities, you have things that you need to do, you need things to need to accomplish, not just spiritually, but also physically. Clear? All right. So the exercise, what? Blessing, rooting, grounding, physical exercise. Okay, this is another one. Don't you notice a lot of times when you're so blissed out with deep meditation, you don't feel like getting up and doing exercise. It's better to just, I'm so spaced out, I'm so blissful, I just want to sit here forever. You notice that? And then some people, they just fall asleep. That's the same reason why we do not recommend you meditating laying down. Twin Hearts meditation, Arhatic Dhyan, any of them, none of it you laying down. It might be tempting, but there are two things that could cause issues. Number one, when you lay down, the back channel is affected by the ground. So when you're laying down, what happens is the energy might get stuck or the floor might be dirty. Number two, there's a high probability when you meditate with your eyes closed and laying down, your body falls asleep. When you fall asleep, let's say you generate lots of energy, halfway through the meditation, the body falls asleep. What happens then? You do not get an opportunity to bless and release the excess energy and do physical exercise to further squirt out the excess energy your body cannot handle. And what happens? It builds, it builds, it builds. And guess what happens? Later on you say, the body's so tired, it has fatigue, you don't feel like doing anything, you have low energy. On the contrary, it's the complete opposite. What happens is there's so much energy, it's just sitting there and becoming stale. So blessing and rooting and exercise are critical. Otherwise, you have all this energy, it just sits and it becomes stale. And guess what? Before you know it, you feel like you're weighed down. So in your mind, without understanding, you think you're tired. Clear? What else? Painting the solar plexus and forehead chakras blue. Okay, solar plexus and forehead. You already know this. Lower clairvoyance is solar plexus. Higher clairvoyance is forehead chakra. So when you do a lot of meditation and your sensitivity goes up, sometimes you start to see or sense things, right? And you're not practical, you start feeling everything. It's too much sensitivity. So you remember advanced pranic healing, focus on your throat chakra, use blue prana, paint your solar plexus with medium blue, not even light, medium, so the blue shrinks down the solar plexus quickly and calms it down. Same thing with the forehead. So solar plexus and forehead, medium blue. Don't do it now. But basically, focus on throat, blue, paint it blue, paint it blue. Clear? Not now. When you do both of them on a regular basis, you have a tendency to be more in your body and more practical, because these chakras decrease your sensitivity a little bit. Clear? All right. Now, what else can you do? Some of you who are super sensitive, you can also wear silk. When you wear silk, you go to the market, you go to places with a lot of people, you're feeling everything. When you wear silk, it acts as a temporary or physical technique, if you will, physical object to desensitize as well as to shield you from the outside energy. Wearing silk. Most of you know, since ancient times, people have worn silk. People have wrapped sacred objects in silk to protect it from energy, negative energy. Clear? What else? Obviously, pranic psychotherapy. If you know somebody's already hallucinating, they're seeing things that are not physically there. That means the web is cracked, right? The chakra web is cracked, or it has holes, or are studded with negative thought form, fear thought forms, or elementals. So massive pranic psychotherapy to clean out, to remove them. So sometimes we met some students, they go like this. They lose sense of practicality. They follow a particular school. The school says, give me all your money, give me all your properties, and you will be enlightened. And so for you and me, we were going, this guy's nuts. But that person, they're so open, they're not thinking. Some of the cracks, some of the chakra webs have been cracked. They've been penetrated with elementals. They cannot think straight, so they're spacing out. They're delusional, right? So what do? Of course, you get professional help as necessary. Then you do massive pranic psychotherapy. Clean out the chakras, energize with electric violet, make sure the webs and cracks are sealed, shield them, and so on. You know the routine in pranic psychotherapy. Extremely important. You do not want to lose a friend or a loved one just because they start getting on the spiritual path. There are ways to do it properly. Clear? What else? Next. Another solution. Read the proper books. You see, when students come to us and say, by the way, I heard that when you do this, the chakra actually turns forward. I'm thinking the crown, they're talking about the crown. They say the crown chakra is facing forward when you become spiritually developed. Have you looked at Om Mani Padme Hum, the book? You have Mahaguruji Mailing's crown chakra. Do you see it standing up like that? No. You look at Achieving Oneness with the Higher Soul, when Master Cho has paintings of the yogi meditating. Do you see that the chakra is like that? No, it's like that. But when a person says, oh, by the way, I read this, or they're reading the wrong book, or they're listening without understanding. Because if you study the correct books, mentioned by the teacher, right? You have the list of books by the teacher, and the books that are mentioned, like from Astara, from A.E. Powell, etheric body, astral body, mental body, causal body, solar system, books that are recommended by the teacher, you will not ask that question because it's obvious. You get the idea? Or you're going to have people who talk about, oh, by the way, when, what did they say? When they take your picture, they will steal your soul. That is common thing they say in the Native American tradition. But of course, in your case, you understand because you've been studying, you've been reading, the soul is the I am presence within me. People cannot steal it from you. So you say, well, if that's the case, then it doesn't really mean that they steal my soul. That means what? They might have access to my energy. That's all it is. Clear? So one of the solutions to ESP mystical syndrome is proper study. Pillar number 5. If you have been studying properly, you will not believe nonsense. And if something is beyond your understanding at that time, you go, let me think. Does this make sense? Is it harming anybody? Well, if I believe this to be true, would it affect my life? Let me think. And since it might cause problem, let me use it as a subject for study for now. Don't base your entire life on it. Just like somebody tells you, oh, by the way, if you use this technique of this color, you can heal any ailment in 3 treatments. You're going to go. So if you don't study what Master Cho taught about internal causes of ailments and external causes of ailments, you believe everything they say. You get the idea? Or another one. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. This is just to kind of shake some of you to see that it is very, very important to be practical. Not to be cynical, but practical. And if you question what? With courtesy. Be polite. Okay, this is another one. Some of you might read or advertisement, or some people claim, well, if you go to this person, give them this much money, they will erase all your bad karma. You heard that before, right? If you go to this person, they will get rid of all your negative karma. And you go, man, is that real? Then you look at the person, and number one, they're having financial problem. They have all sorts of physical ailments. And so common sense will tell you, if this person can erase other people's karma, he or she should be able to fix his own life. You get the idea? So it's not that you're being nasty, you're being critical or cynical. It's just practicing accurate perception. So the teachings are embedded in the books. So when you study the correct books, the teachings by the teacher, you will say, so this does not compute. Thank you very much. You leave. You get my point? Otherwise, you get sucked into ESP syndrome. There are people who always like to get readings, psychic readings. Do you know where you can get the absolutely best advice? Bar none, the very best. From your higher soul. And it's free. It's free. You don't have to pay anyone. You do your meditation. You get your chakras cleansed when you meditate. Do meditation, the Blue Pearl. Ask for guidance from your higher soul. If you're meant to know, you'll know. It's free, no cost. I have nothing against, clairvoyant, psychic. They're great. They've helped a lot of people. The clairvoyants have helped validate a lot of the teachings. But you do not give your future to other people by believing everything they say. You have to think for yourself. Very, very, very important. One thing I really love about the teacher is he, at the start of the class, you are not obligated to believe everything that is taught. You are expected to experiment, to analyze, and make my conclusion. No? Did he say that? No, he said your conclusion. Think for yourself. The Lord Buddha said, right? You remember? Do not believe anything just because it's written in your holy books. Do not believe something just because it's believed by the masses. Do not believe everything, right? Do not believe anything just because it's been around for thousands of years. You know what Master Choa said? I remember one time, I said, Master Choa, but this teaching has been around for thousands of years. He goes, time for update. You get the idea? Nothing is beyond experimentation and analysis. And what else did the Lord Buddha say? Don't believe it just because I said it. I mean, you're talking about the Lord Buddha, you know, a spiritual being who, based on what we're taught, is the highest spiritual attainment a soul can get on earth. And yet, somebody of that caliber would say, don't believe it just because I said it. You see, Master Choa never says, he never says, oh, just trust me, don't think, just trust me, I'm right. He never said that. If you ever come across a teacher just trust me, don't think, run as far as you can. Because true teachings can stand analysis and experimentation. Now, what if you cannot validate at that time? If you cannot validate something, as Master Choa always teach, if something cannot validate, you say, all right, first we look at who told you these things. What is the credibility and track record of that person? If they have a track record of being correct, okay, I'll look at what this truth as temporary truth based on the track record of the person. I will still experiment, I will still analyze, and based on my experience with this teaching or this concept, I will decide whether it's true or not. That is accurate perception, correct expression. Accurately perceiving something to be correct or not, and having the proper having the correct expression, in other words, the correct thing to do afterwards. So if you remember, the embodiment of this is what the Lord Buddha taught as the Eightfold Path. What is the Eightfold Path? Eightfold Path is, number one is right viewpoint. And the rest is what? Right thoughts, right words, right actions, right livelihood, right awareness, right oneness, and so on and so on. You get the idea? So it's actually divided into two. The first one, right viewpoint, is accurate perception. In other words, you have to view the things accurately, what is actually going on. Then from there, you know how to think, you know what to say, you know how to act, what is the right livelihood, how to meditate, how to do this, how to do that. Everything is based on that. It's just like, even if your car is full tank of gas, gasoline or petrol, right? Nice tires, air condition, all the gadgets, your car is perfect, right? You have a map going in the wrong direction. What happens? Doesn't matter. The right viewpoint. Okay, my viewpoint, my accurate perception is I'm going to that place. This is the direction. Okay, good. Then all these things matter. Okay, I can get there quickly because I have a good engine, comfortable, everything is there. So good. Accurate perception is I'll get there, I'll do this, I'll do that. But what? Without the proper direction, none of it matters. If you're supposed to be going north and you go south, I don't care how comfortable you are, how prepared you are for the meeting, none of that matters because you're going the wrong place. So the critical part is accurate perception. And as Masters have always taught, accurate perception means what? Careful observation and correct interpretation of what you find. You get the idea? So when somebody starts to tell you things, they say, oh, by the way, if you just chant this mantra, you'll be super rich in 2 days. You go, okay, let me carefully observe. It's been 3 days since this person's been chanting it. He's still broke. Interesting. What is the correct interpretation? What he said is wrong. Period. Right? Yeah, but that person was so excited he meant it. So what? Doesn't matter. Careful observation is what he said and what happened did not coincide. So therefore, the interpretation is it was not either not done properly or that thing doesn't work. You get the idea? So I hope I do not make you feel negative or bad, but this is very, very important. If we don't learn it from the teacher of practicing discernment, we will still learn it through life, as in people will fool us. By being sharp mentally, practicing discernment, and having loving kindness at the same time, you will be able to prevent or at least minimize from being fooled. What do I say with heart? So that when you notice that somebody is not really telling you the truth or things are not the way people perceive it, you have to use your heart and say, thank you very much, but this is not for me. You don't want to say, yeah, you're a big liar, you're this, you're that. Then what happens? You cause injury. You just say, thank you very much, not interested. Okay, I have my books to read. I still have Massachusetts books. I haven't read it, for a long time. I want to go back and read it. I want to read Theosophy. I want to read Alice Bailey's book. You get the idea? So this is very important. Now, why is it connected to ESP and mystical syndrome? Because when a person understands and knows, the chances of being swept away by sensationalism or what you see in the inner world will be substantially diminished. Now, what if you start seeing a lot of things in the inner world in your meditations? Many times students have come up to us and said, oh, I had this dream, I had this vision. What does it mean? I go, I don't know. A lot of times I say, I don't know. Because there are many factors involved. It could be the lunch they ate was stuck. No, I'm kidding. Right? It could be anything. So, what's usually the instruction? Journal. Have a journal, write it down so that you will see a pattern if there's supposed to be a pattern. Or it could be just something, that you see in the inner world. It's just like when you go on vacation, you go sightseeing. You go, oh, nice mountain, nice beach, nice things going around. Oh, a bird flies by. Well, it doesn't mean that, oh, just because a bird flew by, that's an omen. Or you see the waves, it's moving. Oh, so it's moving. So what? So a lot of times when you do meditation, you see stuff in the world. Some mean something, some don't. You say, how do I know? That's why you journal. You journal it and see if it has any physical correspondence. Maybe yes, maybe no. Clear? That is to prevent what? ESP and mystical syndrome. All these things put together allows you to tread on your spiritual path without, or at least minimal, detouring. Otherwise, if you go on your spiritual path like this, somebody tells you, oh, by the way, if you do this technique, suddenly your body will disappear, maybe even the light. Oh, and then it pulls you away from the path. Then you finally realize, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay, go back to the path. And then somebody says something, by the way, when you wear this crystal, bullets cannot hit you. Well, don't test it. You get the idea? Discernment. That prevents what? ESP syndrome. It prevents mystical syndrome, keeps you on the path. That's it. I hope that this short session, we're done. I hope that this short session has helped you at least realize that, yes, you can use your mental faculty. Things have to make sense. Spirituality has to make sense. That's why in Panic Healing, you remember Panic Healing or Hatha Yoga, what does Master say? Okay, do this practice. It is for this, it is for that. Kundalini meditation, what is it for? It cleanses the chakras, removes ancient seeds, transforms the energy body, upgrades it to be able to handle higher frequency. He doesn't say, just meditate, don't ask questions. He tells you the reason for it so you understand what you do. Hey, the class would be much shorter and much easier if he just says, okay, do this, do that, okay, don't ask questions, go home and practice. You get the idea? The purpose of understanding is so you grow, not just on your spiritual level, but also mentally, emotionally, and etherically. Because, as Master Cho always said, the development of the soul has to be matched by the development of the vehicles. That's that. Alrighty, let's give thanks. To the Divine Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, we thank you for your great, great blessings. We thank you for your immense blessings, your guidance, your help, your healing. Lord God, thank you for accurate perception, correct expression. Lord God, thank you for blessing us with the inner strength to continue our spiritual practice. Lord God, thank you for your mercy and compassion. Thank you also for prosperity and abundance and clarity of mind. and discernment. We thank you. With gratitude, take a deep breath. Ajna, with respect, take a deep breath. To the heart with love, we thank you. Raise it back up, slightly lower. To our beloved and respected teacher, Master Chua Kok Sui, Lord Mahaguru Jimailing, all the great ones, holy gurus, holy masters, saints, archangels, holy angels, and spiritual helpers, we thank you for your immense blessings. Thank you, thank you, thank you in full faith. With gratitude, take a deep breath. Ajna, with great respect, take a deep breath. To the heart with tremendous love, we thank you. Amen. In full faith, so it is. All right, so thank you very much for joining us. We finished the series of 5 on the different possible potential problems encountered in the spiritual practice, in our Hatha Yoga practice, and more importantly, their solutions. So thank you very much. We appreciate you continuously supporting us. Thank you for your comments. Thank you very much for a lot of you who have been contributing to keep this spiritual video ministry free. And may God bless you. May Master Chua Kok Sui bless you more with good health, happiness, prosperity, abundance, and divine oneness to you and your family. So it is. Thank you very much again. Atma Namaste. And we'll see you next time. We'll continue sharing the teachings of Master Chua in the subsequent lessons. Take care. We'll see you next time. Bye. Atma Namaste and welcome. Thank you for joining us for the continuation of Compassionate Objectivity, Grandmaster Chua Kok Sui's Golden Lotus Sutras. Let us start by invoking for divine blessing. To the Divine Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, we humbly invoke for your great blessings. To Master Chua Kok Sui, Mahaguru Jimailing, all the spiritual elders, all the holy masters, saints, archangels, holy angels, and spiritual helpers, we thank you for your great, great blessings, your divine light, divine love, divine guidance, help, healing energy, and divine protection. We thank you in full faith. So be it. All right. Welcome again. Today we've finished this book. We're in part 7, which is honesty and non-lying, which is another term of objectivity and non-falsehood. So before we tackle that virtue, why don't we do some cleansing? So tap your crown, press the center of your palm, be aware of your feet, raise your hands. So focus on the crown, the hands, and the feet. Take a deep breath. Let's chant Om. Om. Just be still. The divine energy centering your crown chakra is being cleansed. Your forehead, your ajna chakra are being cleansed. Your throat chakras are being cleansed. Your front back heart chakras are being cleansed. Your front back liver chakras are being cleansed. Your front back spleen chakras are being cleansed. Your front back solar plexus chakras are being cleansed. Your navel, your spleen, your sex chakra and basic chakras are all being cleansed. Just be receptive. You're under waterfall of beautiful divine light. All negative thoughts, negative energies in these chakras are completely disintegrated, extracted, and properly disposed of. So be it. Just be still. Allow the divine energy to purify your chakras, your channels, and your energy bodies. Just be receptive. Just be still. Okay, you may slowly open your eyes. How do you feel? Much lighter? Just get up and just do some shaking. Shake some of the old energy out. All right, have a seat. Pull out your book. We're on page 43, if you have this version of the book. Compassionate Objectivity, the Golden Lotus Sutras of Character Building. And we're on Honesty and Non-Lying. All right, let's just dive into it. Divine intelligence manifests as objectiveness and non-falsehood. So just to kind of recap, you are a being of divine love, divine intelligence, and divine power. So we've covered the other virtues already, but just to kind of wrap up everything, you are a being of divine love. That manifests as the first two virtues, loving kindness and non-injury, and generosity and non-stealing. Okay? Now you are a being of divine power. That's where constancy of aim and effort comes in. So there's three virtues. Then the last one is you are a being of divine intelligence. That's where honesty and non-lying, or objectiveness and non-falsehood comes in. So the question is, where does moderation and non-excessiveness comes in these three categories? Again, divine love is loving kindness and non-injury, and generosity, non-stealing, right? And then you are a being of divine power, so that's constancy of aim and effort. Then the last one is you are a being of divine intelligence, that's where objectiveness and non-falsehood. So where does moderation and non-excessiveness come in the three aspects that we have? It is actually part of both. It is you are being of divine intelligence because through intelligence you are able to you understand what is good, what is not good, what is too much, what is not too much, what is not enough. You get the idea? Moderation, non-excessiveness. When is love too much or not enough? When is the use of force enough or not enough? That has to do with what you are being of divine intelligence. All right? It is also part of you being a being of divine will or power, because moderation, non-excessiveness also gives you the ability or guides you and gives you the principles of how much dosage of will, power, or energy to be exerted in a particular project or particular endeavor. So moderation, non-excessiveness could be either it's part of your being of divine intelligence and your being of divine will or divine power. All right? So message always says we are a manifestation of God. In other words, we are a reflection of God's qualities. God is a being of divine light, divine love. Divine light is divine intelligence, divine love, and divine intelligence. We are a spiritual being made in the image of God. So therefore, we also quote-unquote inherited these qualities of divine intelligence, divine love, and divine power. The virtues are interconnected with these three different aspects that we have. All right? I hope that helps you understand everything that we're doing. So let's continue. So lying distorts the mental perception, the inner perception of other people. The karmic fruit of this is that one's mental perception will be distorted. Why? Because one has mentally blinded and distorted the perception of others. So I think this is pretty self-explanatory. When you blind somebody from the truth, karmically it comes back as our ability to see truth will also be distorted or covered up. That is the meaning. All right. Every time a person distorts the inner perception of somebody else, his inner perception will be distorted. He just basically repeated it. Honesty must be balanced with non-injury and loving kindness. You should practice honesty most of the time. Now, he'll repeat this several times, but we'll talk about it. In other words, if you put your hand like this, move your right arm. Say honesty, non-lying. Move your left arm. Loving kindness, non-injury. So in other words, if there's ever a conflict between the two, in other words, if by saying certain things, by being honest to something, it will severely and, massively hurt someone, loving kindness supersedes. In other words, if there's a conflict between the two, loving kindness supersedes. There's a story many years ago, I remember he was talking about it, in the Philippines. There's this woman, I think in her 80s, 70s or 80s. Her body's very weak. Her heart has a severe condition, severe heart condition. And her son died of AIDS. And what the family did, they did not tell the mother that the son died of AIDS because she's very conservative Catholic. And, AIDS is usually associated with homosexuality. And in her faith, that's a big no-no. So what the family did is just told her she died of some form of infection. The son died of some infection without telling the mother the details. The question is why? Again, here you go. You have honesty, right, and non-lying. The truth is the son died of AIDS and he was homosexual. Loving kindness says by using this truth, you would be injuring the mother. In other words, there's a high probability, not just a possibility, a high probability the mom would have such an emotional shock that she might have a heart attack and eventually die. So the family decided to use loving kindness a little more than what? Honesty, so that the mother does not get hurt. So Master Cho always says we have to use a form of mature honesty. In other words, if there's going to be a conflict, if you're going to open your mouth and this is just going to destroy this person, and it's not absolutely, here's the key word, not absolutely necessary, then you refrain from it. Clear? Okay, let's continue. That's a form of mature kind of honesty. It's funny, one of the examples he always says this. To differentiate mature kind of honesty and kids or immature honesty is somebody calls looking for your mother, right? You call somebody and you say, "Oh, could I talk to your mother?" The child picks up, "Hold on," and then goes over there. Mom says, "No, I don't want to talk to her. Tell her I'm not there." So the daughter says, "Excuse me, sir. My mom said that she is not here." You get the idea? It's honesty, but it's an immature way. It's just like a kid. So a lot of times people, they don't look at it. Okay, they take it so rigidly that it has to be pure honesty. Well, honesty could also be used as a weapon. If some of you ever had this experience before, somebody tells you something true but extremely hurtful, and then in the end they say, "Oh, I'm just being honest." In other words, when you look at somebody and somebody says, "What do you think of my dress?" You go, "Ooh, it's ugly." Well, first of all, it might be ugly. You could kind of coat it a little bit by saying, "Well, it's very interesting. I'm not really sure if it fits your body very well. Maybe a different shade might match your body shape or body type better." If you're saying, "Oh, it's ugly," that person probably would feel so bad and so terrible, their self-esteem will go down the drain. So it's one of those things where you're constantly juggling loving kindness, non-injury, and honesty and non-lying. Okay, let's continue. So, next thing it says, you have to be honest with yourself. Self-honesty results in rapid spiritual development and humility. To progress spiritually, one must have awareness, self-honesty, and the will to transform. All right, let's talk about this. Actually, it's easier if we understand the next one. Truth can be painful. Humility comes from an accurate perception of what you are. You must know your strengths and weaknesses, your virtues and your vices. Essentially what he's saying is this. In order to spiritually progress, we need to know what our strengths, our weaknesses. Okay, what exactly does that mean? So for example, we already know, hey, we have a tendency to be lazy. So you don't go out there and say, by the way, I meditate every day, I do this, which is true, which is not true. You know your weakness is you have a tendency to dilly-dally around and give excuses instead of sitting down and actually doing a spiritual practice or whatever task you want to do. So you have to be honest with yourself, knowing fully well, like, hey, this is one of my weaknesses. It's something I need to work on. And just be honest with yourself about it. A lot of times what people do is this. If they have certain insecurities, which are actually knowledge of the weakness. That's why it's an insecurity. They know they're not good at this. What do? They cover it up. That manifests as what you call unhealthy pride. What exactly does that mean? If a person does not have good self-esteem, they don't think they're smart enough, they're not good enough, what happens when they're in front of public, they always keep showing, oh, I'm the smartest person in the world. I know better. I'm very important. They keep pushing themselves on it because it's actually a facade or like a shell to give a false impression of who they really are. So if a person does not really understand that, hey, it's okay, I'm not perfect, nobody's perfect, we're all evolving, everybody making mistakes, everybody have faults that they need to correct, and I'll progress at my own rate. So if they think that way, they don't find themselves trying to impose their beliefs on people. They don't come across as being arrogant and things like that because they know who they are. So to spiritually develop, there has to be self-honesty. And with this self-honesty comes humility. Humility in the sense of what? Somebody asks you to do something, you say, I'm sorry, that's not my specialty. And one of the stories that I always remember is one time one of my colleagues was in Massachusetts and they had a flat tire. The car had a flat tire. She's a woman. He's a man. So, you would think most of the time you say, oh, the man will show his or her strength or gentleman qualities to repair change the tire. And Massachusetts said, I'm very, very sorry. This is not my specialty. I've never done it before. I'm sorry, I cannot do this. And he was just plain honest. He knows he's a great spiritual teacher. He knows his strengths. He also noticed that that's not something he's good at. So they waited for, a car service to come in and do it for them. You get the idea? So it's as simple as you know who you are, you know who you are not. If you're not good at physics, you're not going to pretend, oh, by the way, I know every formula in the world. And when somebody asks you, what happened? You fall flat on your face. You just say, that's not my expertise. As Master Cho always says, not everyone can be a person cannot be an expert in everything. Maybe in many incarnations, yes, but not in a few incarnations. The database of knowledge is so wide and so deep, no one is expected to be an expert. So if you don't know, you just say, I don't know. Or you can say, by the way, this is my opinion. In my perception, it's this, and this. That's it. People respect you for it. So self-honesty is extremely important. You have to know, hey, what are my strengths? What am I good at? And these things I'm not good at, well, I'm still learning. So when somebody asks you to do it, you don't say, oh, pretend that, oh, I'll do it because I know it. You just say, well, I'll do my best. I just want to let you know, this is not my level of, this is not something I'm good at yet, but I'll do my very best to make it happen for you. So at least you're giving the person a realistic expectation. And you also feel good that you're not lying to yourself. All right? Let's continue. Practice self-honesty without excessive self-judgment. Otherwise, the disciple might become psychologically imbalanced. All right. You see, it's something like this. We realize what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are, right? So you realize, hey, I'm good at this, I'm not good at that. So if you make a mistake, it's good to have remorse, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not good at... let's say one of my weaknesses, if you pick one, is I have a tendency to procrastinate, okay? I guess nobody has that, right? Okay, let's say you have a tendency to procrastinate. And you're supposed to finish a certain deadline, and you didn't do it because you've been procrastinating. You didn't finish the job because you've been procrastinating. So you feel bad. You say, oh man, I can't believe it. I cannot blame anyone. It's my mistake. So that's good. That's the first step. Acknowledging that we made a mistake. But the thing is this, there has to be just the proper amount of remorse. Otherwise, if you keep dwelling that, oh man, I messed up, it's bad, and you dwell on it over and over and over again, two things happen. Number one, it's counterproductive because you are actually implanting negative thoughts on yourself. Even though it's just one incident, you keep pouring energy into it. There's a saying, energy follows where you put your attention to. So the more you focus on the mistake, the higher probability you'll make the mistake again. You get my point? So it's good to have remorse, to at least have that awareness. You see, awareness comes from a realization, right, that the mistake has been made, so that you say, oh, next time I won't make that mistake again. So just the proper amount of remorse is good. Like, oh, I can't believe I made a mistake. Because if you don't feel that way, you say, oh, whatever. There's a high probability it does not stick. You make the mistake again. So the right amount of remorse is good. But some people, they are still feeling bad 5-10 years later when the event is not even that significant. So it causes them to have psychological problem. Something, they made a mistake, they cannot forgive themselves, and what happens? 5-10 years go down the tubes. They didn't progress because they're dragging themselves down. You just say, oh, I made a mistake. How do I learn from it? Let's move on. Clear? All right, let's move on. Next, maintain humility. You see, when a person knows his or her own strengths and what his or her own weaknesses are, humility naturally comes out. Because when there's something you don't know, you just say, I'm sorry, I don't know it. But if there's something I know, hey, I know this very well, let me handle it. You see, the perception is so accurate, there's no need to self-inflate or self-deflate. There's no need, because you are so clear where you are, where you're not, and when it comes across, this is who I am, period. So humility comes actually from good self-esteem or self-perception. Okay, perception of the self. So if you have a good perception of yourself, you say, okay, this is what I am, this is what I'm not. Humility naturally comes out of that. You don't have to prove anything to anybody because you know who you are. Clear? If honesty is in conflict with loving kindness and non-injury, loving kindness and non-injury supersede honesty. You remember that. In other words, if what's going to come out of our mouth is hurtful and it's not absolutely necessary, keep the mouth shut. You see, why is it absolutely necessary? Sometimes people, like for example, children, if you don't tell them exactly, by the way, this is the mistake you made, so that's why you're having these problems now, as an example. If you don't tell them, they don't realize it, they don't feel like they need to change, right? Now, another thing about that is something like this. If you tell them too softly, not enough loving, if you put too much love into it, like you sugar it so much, oh honey, it's okay. The person does not feel the impact of their mistake. So they would not have the awareness to be careful next time so they don't make the mistake again. So sometimes when these two are in conflict, you just might have to adjust a little bit. Maybe a little more of this, or a little more will, a little more honesty, or a little bit more. You adjust according to the situation. Clear? So let's continue. Do not use honesty to hurt other people. Do not use honesty as an excuse to be verbally sadistic. I think we talked about this before. Sometimes you meet people, they cut you down left and right with their words, and in the end they just say, well, I'm just being honest. They'll tell you, oh, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're ugly, blah, 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 and in the end they say, oh, I'm just being honest. Well, that is their perception of honesty. You get the idea? And a lot of times when people say that, the funny part is when people say that, I'm just being honest, a lot of times they embellished it a little bit. In other words, the negative quality, they kind of inflate it a little bit. Clear? All right, let's move on. When you master honesty, your mind becomes razor sharp. You can penetrate very deeply, seeing things as they are without delusions. If you want to understand deep esoteric teachings, you must practice a high degree of honesty. What he's saying, it goes back to the law of karma again. If you want your mind to be clear, you have to keep other people's minds clear. In other words, if you don't want your perception to be distorted, right, do not distort other people's perception. That's basically what he's saying. All right? Now, deep esoteric teachings. Deep esoteric teachings is like this. It goes far beyond what we're going to cover now. But deep esoteric teachings is the ability. That's why it's called esoteric, not exoteric. Esoteric means inside. It's deep inside. It's hidden. The word esoteric means hidden. So in order to understand what is hidden, you have to have a clear, sharp mind to be able to penetrate the external surface to see the inside. And in order to do that, you cannot have any clouds on your perception. So if you have a tendency to lie to people, make things up left and right, then the karma of that is there are more and more clouds that are hindering you from seeing deeper teachings. So in order to clear this up, you can study, you meditate, clean your own aura. That's important, but it's also important to refrain from intentionally lying or hurting people with truth, because that just puts more cloud. So if you refrain from that, there's less clouds, you practice your meditation, it allows you to dive deep, cut down, your mind's a razor sharp, you understand deep esoteric teachings. That's what it means. Clear? Okay, let's move on. That's why he said, practicing a high degree of honesty is a key to becoming a genius. What is a genius? The ability to understand, many things. You're super smart, you're super sharp. So if you don't distort other people's perception, then it's easy to see things clearly. What is complicated for other people, for you is very simple like that. Okay? Then, interesting question. Are you sure what you are saying is really correct? A lot of times we say something with such conviction, and we think it's correct, but actually it's just based on hearsay. Let's put it this way: the wars have been waged throughout history on misunderstandings. Somebody says it with such conviction, people believe it. It's just like dictators; they go out and say, "We have to kill this race. We have to do this. We have to do that." They say with such conviction, people say, "Oh, must be correct." As we always say, people say, "Oh, the person sounds so sincere." A person can be sincere and sincerely wrong. The conviction does not always equate to truth. Just because somebody believes it and bets their life on it does not make it true. Truth is truth. The way the person expresses it is a different matter. Okay? Different people can have different opinions and still be right. There are different levels of truth and different facets of truth. A good example of this is the chakras. All right, you heard the 7 chakras before. Most people think, there's 7 chakras. That's correct. Then some people say, actually, that's not correct. There are 9. Well, 7 chakras could be correct, but for somebody who understands deeper, they can say, your 7 is correct, but I also noticed that there are also 2 more. Oh, okay, there are 9 chakras. And somebody who's clairvoyant said, look, based on the tree of life and based on deep esoteric teachings and what the clairvoyant sees, you actually have 11 major chakras. So the 7 chakras is the first level of truth. Okay? Then the 9 chakras, second level of truth. Then 11 chakras are the third level of truth. So all 3 different truths can exist simultaneously depending on the understanding of the person. Clear? Just like when you ask somebody, all right, let's talk about it. What is the meaning of love? Ooh. You have a baby. Love is just like looking at mama's eyes, daddy's eyes. Goo goo gaga, I want milk. Well, that's love. Right? You have somebody who's like a toddler or maybe a small kid. What happens? What is love? Love is wanting the approval of mom and dad. You become a teenager, well, it gets interesting what the meaning of love is. Then when you get to be in your 40s, the meaning of love is if a person's retired, a person's dying, what is love? When a person on the spiritual path, what is love? So although this is love, right, depending on the development of emotional body, mental body, spiritual development, this love can have many meanings and everybody can be correct at the same time. Many levels of truth. All right? Next. Lies used as excuses must be avoided. Practice a mature type of honesty. Eventually, everything based on lies will be destroyed. As much as possible, avoid all unnecessary lies as they are injurious. And he says, more lies must be required to support a lie. Lies produce more lies. Practice high degree of honesty. For every lie that is made, you need at least 5 to 10 of them to cover it up. And then for each of those, you need it's exponential. So as much as possible, do not lie unless absolutely necessary. You say, Well, why can't you be completely 100% honest? Well, what if somebody comes into your house with a gun, wants to buy your, wants to steal, not does it, wants to take your stuff, take your things. If they ask you, do you have money? What do you say? Oh, yeah. In fact, I have 5 safes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One is in the bedroom, one is in the kitchen, one is this, one is this, one is that. You're being honest. Okay, number one, right there, there's, there's a mistake there, right? And number 2, the person says, okay, what is the combination of each one? Okay, then you give it to, I'm supposed to practice honesty. You see, you have the right to protect your family. You have the right to protect your assets. So a mature form of honesty would be what? If that does happen, God forbid, you just say, oh, okay, there's one safe. And if you're smart, you pick the one with the least amount of money. So hopefully, just by that, the guy will be happy and leave. You get the idea? You're still practicing honesty, but at the right dosage, and the loving kindness towards your family and your well-being supersedes. So you just kind of show one, or even lie to them and say, oh, by the way, no, everything's in the bank. But that might not be too safe because the person might go crazy. You just say, you give them something, so hopefully they go away. You get the idea? Don't say, oh, you are taught to practice honesty to the letter, so you tell them exactly where the safes are, what the combinations are, you even go and help them get it out. I mean, you get the idea? Some people, they take things so rigidly, it's hard to spiritually develop or mentally develop because they don't learn the essence of the teaching. Clear? So that's why Master Cho said it has to be a mature type of honesty. What else? So, invoking for God's blessing. We're on page 47. Open your palms. Lord God, please bless me with honesty to others, honesty to myself, non-self-delusion, and a harmless form of honesty, with thanks and in full faith, so be it. Lord God, thank you for blessing me with self-honesty and honesty to others in a mature way. We thank you in full faith, so be it. Amen. Okay. How are we doing? Well, there's 2 more pages. If you don't mind, we'll just go ahead and cover it. It's on the same topic. Let's see. Truth is like a jewel, like a diamond. It has many facets, many sides. If you look at only one side, you will not see the whole picture. What you see depends on how you look at it. This has many levels of truth. So let's just try to see it from his perspective to make it easier to understand. A word, W-O-R-D, a word, is like a finger pointing at different things. Do not look at the finger. Focus on the essence of the word. Focus on what the finger is pointing at. So Master Cho talks about this story of a scholar that went to see a spiritual teacher. And the spiritual teacher was very glad to help. So the student says, teacher, could you please interpret this sacred teachings for me, these sacred texts? The teacher said, why don't you read it to me? Because I'm illiterate, I am no read, no write. So read it to me. The student, not being too smart, started to judge the teacher, said, teacher, you're supposed to be a teacher. You're supposed to be the head of this spiritual group. And you can't even read. The teacher said kindly, he says, yeah, that's true. But in your case, you have the ability to read, but you do not understand what you're reading. You keep looking at the finger, you do not know where the finger is pointing at. Words are like fingers. The same word could mean different things. In other words, the same word could point to different things at the same time. So, what happens when you talk about truth? Truth has so many levels. The way he does it is like this. Let me see. I think it's here on this page. Okay, let's do it again. Put your hand like this. Make a small circle. Say truth level 1. Okay? Then a bigger circle. Say truth level 2. And then truth level 3. So, truth level 1 is contained in level 2. Truth level 1 and 2 is contained in level 3. In other words, a higher truth will contain the lower truth. So if you say there are only 7 chakras, okay, that's interesting. Then somebody who understands says, by the way, you have 9 chakras. It does not make the 7th chakra wrong. It just simply means what? Yes, there are 7, but actually there's 2 more. And somebody who's a higher clairvoyant or somebody who has studied deeper would say, hey, both of the 2 are correct, but you actually have 11 major chakras. And somebody even more spiritual advances, by the way, you have 12 and more. You get the idea? and you have minor chakras also. So these truths can exist simultaneously. Now let's talk about this as far as spiritual teachings. In spiritual teachings, an easy way to understand it is something like this. The first level of truth usually is taking a spiritual teaching or the verse in the sacred text literally. The second level of truth would be understanding the teachings or reading the spiritual text symbolically. And the third level of truth is what you call esoteric truth or even energetic truth. Let's give you an example. In the Bible, there's a very famous verse that says, if your eye be single, your whole body be filled with light. All right, you understand? If the eye is single, your body be filled with light. So the first level of truth, if you take it literally, that means you have to pluck one of your eyes out, make one of your eyes blind for you to be filled with spiritual light. It's pure nonsense, right? But that is if you took it literally, and none of you probably do that, right? I hope. Okay. A second level of truth will be symbolic. Symbolically, that means you have to be very one-pointed, with one eye, just really focus on your objective, not two eyes, as in you're not focused on other things, just one-pointed. You have to be very focused. So it's symbolic. By being focused in your practice, your meditation, you'll experience the light of God. Very good, symbolic. Then the next level of truth is, a lot of you have taken the class Om Mani Padme Hum, have studied the Spiritual Essence of Men book, you have studied Achieving Oneness with the Higher Soul with Master Cho, and you've learned that in the center of your head is the pineal gland, right, which is actually a particle of light. And that particle of light, when the energy in the center of your head is very, very strong and activated, it's like an eye. That's one. Or it's also called like the remnant eye. And it's interesting, in the different parts of the world, when the sun does not shine as much, really cloudy or whatever, people have a tendency to be depressed. And if you ask a doctor, they will say because your pineal gland needs to be stimulated by light to produce the necessary chemicals to give you a sense of well-being. So it's like an eye. You got it? To perceive light, you need a receptor like an eye. So the third level of truth would be, if your eye be single, your body be filled with light. So the center of your head, in the pineal gland, what is called the blue pearl, when that is very, very activated with divine energy, your whole aura is filled with divine light. So first level of truth is, you need one eye physically only. Second level of truth, symbolically, you have to be focused in your spiritual practice, one-pointedness. That is... this is above this, right? Second level of truth. Third level of truth is what? It is actually a deep esoteric teaching. So depending on the development of the student will determine which level of truth they understand. Clear? So that's that. Let's move on. So truth has many levels. Fanatical or dangerous people believe their opinion is only the truth. So when people get fanatical, that means they don't use their mental faculty properly. They just get really emotional. They go crazy. They do crazy things. As simple as that. Truth is dynamic. Truth is like water and air. It should be made available to people who are ready. Okay. This is actually talked about a little bit in detail. When people are ready, truth is revealed piece by piece. Okay. Most of you have heard, if the student is ready, the teacher will appear. What exactly does that mean? If the student is at the level, the chakras, the body, the mental faculty, the emotional state, if everything's ready, the appropriate teacher will appear. That is the correct term. The appropriate teacher will appear. It doesn't mean the student is ready, the teacher will appear. The question is, who's the teacher? The appropriate teacher at that time. You will not expect a college professor to teach a kindergarten child. So a kindergarten child will require a kindergarten teacher. So when the student is ready at a certain level, a certain teaching comes to you. So that shows you that teachings are being given, or the truth is being given to us piece by piece. That is what it's meant. So the interesting part is, a lot of times, if you have one great spiritual teacher, if he or she knows what you can handle, the teachings given to you at a certain level. That's why in pranic healing, we have pranic healing level 1, or what is called basic pranic healing. People are just learning about cleansing, energizing, the chakras, right? Meditation. So that's first level. So the teachings be given to you at that level, or a small piece. Once you experience good results, you help people, you're really dedicated to helping a lot of people, so on and so on, you want to learn more, okay, this next level of truth is given to you. Or second piece of the truth is using advanced pranic healing, or using colors. So you have white, and then you say, oh, by the way, instead of just white light, this white light differentiates into many different frequencies, or color pranas. This color prana can be used for this. Then, when you're ready, pranic psychotherapy, not only can you use colors, you can use this to remove negative thoughts and negative emotions, phobias, addictions, so on and so on. You can use this extraction technique, fill up the chakra with energy, the person feels better, and so on and so on. You get the idea? So the teachings are given piece by piece. Then the teacher says, oh, by the way, that same energy can be used for protection. It can be used with gemstones and crystal for spiritual development and practice, improve your relationships, and so on and so on. So the teacher actually, it's something like this. Either you have many teachers in your life, or you belong to a good school that the teachings are very comprehensive, but it is given to you at the rate that the students can absorb and assimilate in a way of what? Different levels of teachings, or different classes. That's why it says truth. When people are ready, truth is revealed piece by piece. Clear? All right. Truth is simple, but it's not obvious to common people. You know, it's interesting. I remember one thing Master Cho said was this many years ago. He says, what is enlightenment? That's always people. What is enlightenment? And people give all sorts of answers. It's this, it's that, it's oneness, it's this. You know what Master Cho said? Enlightenment is knowing what is obvious. You say, what does that mean? When a person develops more and more, they start to realize it is obvious that the physical body, the emotions and the thoughts that they have are not permanent. So when these are not permanent, who is using these impermanent vehicles or instruments? So the obvious thing is there must be an I, right? An I that moves the body. There must be an I that moves the emotion or create the emotions. There must be an I that initiates and continues the mental process. So when the body dies, the emotions are gone, the thoughts are gone, who's left? I. The real I is the soul, the spiritual self. So enlightenment means understanding or knowing the obvious, that you are the I am within you. And then, of course, there are different levels of truth, and there are different levels of enlightenment. Different levels of understanding that, hey, not only am I a spiritual being, I am a spiritual being connected to an even higher and more powerful spiritual being, the higher soul. Then I realize I'm actually one with my divine self, which is ultimately one with God and one with all. So different levels of enlightenment, different levels of understanding truth. That's that. All right? Truth is based on validation, not emotion. Okay, let's just finish it with this. Truth is based on validation, not emotion. As we said before, just because something feels correct does not make it right. It could be correct, but this is not the only criterion to make something right. Some people, they say this. They say, just follow your heart only, everything will be fine. You heard it before? Oh, just follow your heart, everything will be fine. Don't worry about anything else, just follow your heart. Well, that assumes that your emotional body is clear. That's one. And number two, that assumes that emotionally you're not attached to the result. Because if you are, your opinion of what is correct and what might be correct, either one could be correct or either one could be wrong. So truth is truth regardless of how we feel about it. Clear? That's why Master always says we have to practice balance. You have to be very intelligent. You have to be, willful enough or certain enough to do what needs to be done. At the same time, there has to be a degree of love and caring for people. These three are constantly balancing. All right, let's move on. Truth is honesty in a harmless way. He's just basically repeating what he said. If there's a conflict, let's repeat, conflict between honesty, non-lying, and loving kindness, non-injury. Loving kindness, non-injury supersedes. And the last one, wisdom or intuition is seeing the truth through direct inner perception without using the rational mind. All right, what does he mean? The rational mind basically works like this, as most of you know. You study the matter, right? As you study, A is equal to B. B is equal to C. Therefore, A is equal to C. You study it. This led to this conclusion. Direct inner perception or intuition says A is equal to C. Why? It's obvious. I see it. Or the best way message puts it is like this. Somebody who does not have intuition or direct knowing will be like a person in front of an elephant with his eyes closed. So he's going, I feel this big leg. 4 of them. I feel this 2 big ears. I feel this long trunk. It's an elephant. Okay? A person who has intuition, direct inner perception, hey, it's obvious, it's an elephant. So why are we talking about this? Just to finish this segment, when we do our spiritual practice, we are able to heighten our intuitive intelligence. So the more you do your meditation, it allows you to access higher spiritual senses. It allows you to see things clearly that other people do not see. It allows you to perceive something that is not obvious to other people but obvious to you. This is intuitive intelligence. By the way, intuitive intelligence works with the rational mind. So when these work together, you're able to see things clearly. At the same time, you can use your mind to validate what you are sensing. That's it. Okay? I hope that you learned a lot today. You know, it's one of those topics where it's very simple, direct to the point, and it really helps us with our lives. Because a lot of times we get easily swayed by, sensationalism, right? People get really excited. Oh, guess what? Like this, you go. But if you don't think and analyze, what happens? You get swept with the emotions, so you cannot think clearly. It's just like somebody, who wants to win you over. Instead of making you understand certain things, they get you emotionally excited. So when you get emotionally excited, the mental faculty is not functioning as much. It is the emotional faculty that is functioning. So you're all excited. Say, sign here, buy this. You go, oh yeah, it'll make you look good. It'll make you look nice in front of your friends and so on and so on. Don't worry about the money. You don't. Oh man, you cannot afford it in your budget. But you see, since the mental faculty is not that active by the time it's the emotional body, what happens? Impulse buying. But if your mental quality go, okay, that's nice. I mean, you're getting me all excited. Good, I see the benefits. But let me think: is this part of my budget? Do I really need this? And how you said I'm going to look good in front of my friends. Well, I'm not going to wear this in front of my friends. So what difference does it make? Let me think. Okay, not a good idea. Thank you very much. You get the idea? Honesty, non-lying, objectiveness, and non-falsehood also keeps your mind razor sharp, so people do not easily take advantage of you. Clear? So all these teachings are very, very helpful in all areas of our lives. Anyway, so I hope that you learned a lot. Of course, everything I'm sharing with you is my opinion of what I understood the teacher taught on his priceless teachings. So Compassionate Objectivity, the Golden Lotus Sutras on Character Building. All right, finish the book. So let us give thanks. To the Divine Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, we thank you for your immense blessings, your divine light, divine love, divine guidance, help, healing, and protection. Thank you for the teachings. Thank you for blessing us with the virtues of loving kindness and non-injury. Thank you for blessing us with the virtue of generosity and non-stealing. Thank you for blessing us with the virtue of constancy of aim and effort and non-laziness. Thank you for blessing us with the virtue of honesty and non-lying, the virtue of objectiveness and non-falsehood. And thank you for blessing us with the virtue of moderation and non-excessiveness, so we may practice all these virtues properly. We thank you in full faith, so be it. In full faith, so be it. Amen. Om. Amen. So it is. All right. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope you learned a lot. As we finish this series, of course, we'll start with other books by Grandmaster Chua Kok Sui. We want to make sure that we give you the opportunity to really learn the teacher's teachings, and we are here to basically guide you and point you in the direction that at least he has taught us, and so you can understand his teachings much deeper. All right, so please give us some comments. We love hearing from you as always, and a lot of you have been donating to keep this ministry free. We thank you for it, and it is being used properly. We want to make sure that we can continue to spread his work and his teachings through this media. All right, thank you very much for your generosity. So Atma Namaste, God's blessing be with you. We'll see you next time. Bye.